Jitu, just comment on that point about physical infrastructure. Now, earlier you said that, we're building these shiny glass boxes, right? But unfortunately, we can't control what's outside. The truth is the India that we live in and the India that we want to be by, say, the Viksit Bharat dream is about, where the physical infrastructure also brings in a lot of quality. There are stories about roads caving in at the first floods. There are stories about, where quality is lacking. Buildings are leaking, roofs are leaking at airports. So when we want to build our infrastructure at scale, what are the best practices that we can do? Because we need to be cost efficient, we need to build it at scale, and we also need to be sustainable. So what would your thoughts be on this?
The best people to put in the best practices, But that's the problem. I mean, this is something which is like a no-win situation. And I think all of us can sit and have many conferences and talk, but it's actually the government which needs to bring about the change because, I think there's a lot of private sector who can do it. To give you an example, in one of our parks, we've actually spent 170 crores and built a flyover with a shoulder into a park, out of a park, and solve all the traffic problem. But it took us 5 years to get approval for it because the government wasn't spending money and we were spending the money. That also is a problem. So I think this is more a people's problem and the elected body need to change their attitude. So everything is available. India is not some backward country where you can't make good roads and good pavements. Everything is possible. So if it's possible in our parks, why is it not possible on the streets? It's just the attitude, I think.
Jitu, if I may just add a couple of thoughts, and it may sound a slanted comment to your industry, but I think I agree with everything you said, and I hold myself equally accountable. I think, Rima, where I think what India really needs is more enforcement of rules and regulations. And that enforcement applies to a digital player. And the Reserve Bank of India does a phenomenal job of bringing governance, control, making sure compliance and everything else works. I think in the hard infrastructure space, if you can create that similar level of rules and enforcement of it, I don't want bureaucracy, but certain enforcement. At the heart of this is going to be improvements in the legal system. You can't have a country with 51 million cases caught up in courts of India as backlog, which at the current pace of resolution will take 300 years to just get rid of the backlog. So you really change those types of mechanisms, I think you're going to create accountability at all levels.
Ankur, we all want to build more, right? We want more buildings, we want more offices, we want more products, we want more services. This more and more is also having an impact on our climate. And India has this goal of being net zero by 2070. So how do we achieve this dream of building more and yet being sustainable, green energy buildings at the same time? Bring in the Asia-Pacific perspective as well.
I would say that we are far ahead of the curve already. I think the mission of net zero by 2070, I would not be surprised that that target actually is achieved by 2047. I think India will be the Viksit Bharat and the greenest country in the world by 2047. We have abundance of resources. We have the best solar resource available to any country of our size in the world. And the participation that the private sector has had and companies like us have done in the renewable power generation space is second to none. I would compare, and hopefully hindsight's 2020, so in 25 years we'll see. But we look back and look at our energy requirements and how it was fulfilled, and look at it with pride. Just the way we look at the digitization of India, the Aadhaar card, the UPIs of the world, and the 5G rollout and 4G penetration, and we look back and we'll see that we arrived it in the right way in the country. We did our evolution from a very well developing nation to a developed nation, and we did it in a sustainable manner. So I'm not actually concerned that today as it stands, lots of challenges, growing pains if you want to call it. But again, the line from a high growth developing nation to a developed country will not be a straight line. And we should all just enjoy that process. I'm very excited about what lies in front of us. The road will not be a straight line, it will be bumpy, but that's fine.
The journey is worth it, right? So just give us your closing comments on this particular topic. Ari?
So, my closing comment is that this is a test match. It's not a T20. I think it's going to need a lot of hard work. I would also say a few things that we should continue to put laser focus on. Digital economy is great, provided you've got trust, confidence, security, all tying together. I think the greatest challenge is cybersecurity, not just for India, but for the world as a whole. And there's significant more public-private partnership initiatives that really needs to happen on security. So that's one. The other piece is let's build a much sharper R&D-led growth story for India where we not only innovate, but we invent and we create new things that becomes a contributor to the global engine. You know, today we have an R&D of about 0.003% of GDP, and the US is at about roughly 4%. China is at 3.5% of GDP. So I think we've got work to do. Collaboration between universities and governments, universities and corporate sector to create greater engineering and capability, I think would be things that will spur this India growth story.
So I think it has to begin from all of us, actually. I think we need to
What would you
focus-
do? What are the growth plans for
No,
embassy?
I mean, I think we should make at least best of what we have and use digitization in that. At least instead of, sometimes people rush in different places instead of just being calm and taking a number and waiting. And so there are lots of other things which, first, of course, the government has a huge task and we can continue blaming the government, but I think it's the attitude of the Indian people also needs to change in following systems and using all these methods which are available. I think that for a start would be a great thing, and then rest will follow. But we don't discipline ourselves, so I think we need a lot of disciplining. So yes, you need nice roads. I mean, we use all that in Dubai and Singapore and everything. But when we come to our own country, we don't actually utilize so much of it. So let's at least start using all what we have available, and then focus on the government to improve the infrastructure or the physical infrastructure. And then, of course, there's a lot of people to digitalize things and services. So I think that's.
So give me a number, right? The kind of investment embassy will be making.
I mean, honestly, we're a company responsible to shareholders, driven by profitability and other things. We can do a certain extent on the infrastructure, but all we can do is make life better for our people who live in our apartments, who live in our complexes, and which we are doing, continuing in our parks growth. But outside, we are, as a company, we're not in the infrastructure business. But I think that all of us, if we work together, and there's enough pressure on the government to do things right, so it happens. I mean, I think I wouldn't really say that in an audience like that embassy is going to do this, do that for the infrastructure, to tell the truth. But what is within our limitation and within our four walls, we can make it the best.
Ankur, I know, in the last 10 years, you all have invested close to about $10 billion, and you've gone on record to say the next $10 billion of the real estate investment in India is going to happen much faster. So India is clearly a very hot, exciting market. Give us your closing comments on this topic.
I mean, India is an exciting market, but it's not an exciting market today. It's an exciting market for the next several decades. So 10 billion, we can add one more zero to it. I mean, I think the limit is extremely high. The opportunity is here. I would only make a couple of comments around what we can do to fast track it. We've seen a tremendous growth in the digital technology, IT sectors in the country, which was led by private enterprise in a large way, and government supported it. The physical infrastructure, every project is a public-private partnership. Even the business parks that we own or Mr. Virvani's company owns, they are in some way, shape, or form physical infrastructure, which means that they are partnering with the government of the country. So we do not need less regulation. I think regulated growth will be good. It will be sustainable. What we need is a broader participation by the country. GDP growth is a function of increase in productivity and increase in workforce. So we need to have participation by women. We need to have participation by a larger spectrum of employment generating growth in the country that will sustain us. That means you will need more of offices, residences, hotel rooms, and all of the above, which will be, the Atmanirbhar Bharat that people talk about. The Atmanirbhar Bharat is when everybody's Atmanirbhar and not dependent on somebody else.
I know. The idea is that today we have 800 million people connected to the internet, right? We all have a phone. We all are connected to YouTube. We have data. But the idea is that every citizen, irrespective of their economic status, is connected to the good life. And that is what, Atmanirbhar and Viksit Bharat mean. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. The promise of tomorrow and what Phygital India can do.